relativity. Relativity means the business environment differs from one nation to another. Technological environment refers to the latest innovations in the products, whatever is available. Attitudes of government officials towards business may have either a positive or negative impact upon the business. So what are the various macro level factors here? The stage of economic development of the country. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce and Management, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. I welcome you all to this session. In this revision session on Chapter 3, we will be having brief history or a brief summary of what the Chapter 3 holds for us. Now, in this Chapter 3 on business environment, we have the various topics here. What is the meaning of the business environment and its features? And the importance of business environment and its dimensions. What is the economic environment in India? Liberalization, privatization, globalization, and demonetization. So these are the various concepts which will be involved in Chapter 3, that is business environment. Now, you can expect 1 mark question, 2 mark questions, 4 mark questions on this chapter, that is business environment. So please make a note of it. So if you can see the entire video, you will be able to answer the 1 markers, 4 markers, 2 markers, etc. So let us see this concept of business environment. Now, what do we understand by the meaning of the word business environment? It means the sum total of all individuals, institutions, and other forces that are outside the control of a business enterprise that may affect its performance. So, it is the sum total of all the forces. So, all those uncontrollable factors. So, those factors over which the business does not have any control, but which affects the business. So, it is called as business environment. So, all those factors over which the business does not have any control, but then those factors which affect the business, they are called as business environment. The economic, political, social, technological, and other forces which operate outside a business environment are a part of its environment. So, the business will prosper if the economic environment is good, or if the political environment is good, if the social, technological, and other forces, they are all good, only then the business will prosper. So, it is all a part of the business environment. Then, the next features of business environment. So, what are the features of business environment? First one is totality of external forces. So, by the external forces, we mean all those individuals, all those institutions, the government policies, and all those factors over which the business does not have any control and which will affect the business. So, all these together we call it as the business environment. So, that is why we call it as totality of the external forces. Then, second one is specific and general forces. So, specific forces implies, so all those forces which are directly affecting the business. So, it may be the customers, the change in the customers' tastes and preferences, or the general forces like the rate of interest, the inflation rate, etc. So, they are specific forces and general forces which may be affecting the business. Then, interrelatedness. So, business environment is interrelated. So, for example, if you can, life expectancy of the people and the health concern. So, for example, if the people are more health conscious, then we can have the more life expectancy in the country. So, they both are interrelated. So, if the people are more health conscious, then there will be a demand for health conscious food products. So, based on that, the business has to encash it. So there is interrelatedness in the business environment, dynamic nature. So we all know that the environment keeps on changing. So based on the changing conditions of the business environment, the business has to adapt itself. Then uncertainty. Uncertainty means we cannot predict. So whenever we are investing any money in the business, we are not sure whether it will result in a profit or a loss. So that is why we say that the result of any business is uncertain. Then the next one is complexity. So the business environment is a set of forces which are very complex in nature. So we cannot understand the business tactics. So if you are very lucky, you may be having a very good business, but if the luck is against you, so you may not have a very good business. So we cannot just predict what the business condition is. So that is why we say that the business environment is very, very complex. We cannot understand it. Then relativity. Relativity means the business environment differs from one nation to another. For example, the environment in US is different, the environment in Europe is different, the environment in India is different. So depending on the political setup, the environment there, the people there, the business environment keeps on changing. So that is why we say that business environment is relative in nature. So it depends from one place to another. Then the next one is importance of business environment. So why it is essential for us to study the business environment. The first one, it enables the firm to identify opportunities and getting the first mover advantage. So when we are having a proper study of the business environment, we will be able to know what are the opportunities available for the business, and we will be able to encash on those opportunities. So that is why we say that it will give us the first mover advantage. So when you know that something is there, so when there is, you can cash in on that opportunity and make huge profits. Then second one, it helps the firm to identify threats and early warning signals. So it will also help the business firm to identify threats. So what are the various threats to the business? So we will be able to identify it and we will be prepared for the threat. Then it helps in tapping useful resources. So with the help of business environment, we will be able to make use of the available resources. So when we have a proper study of the environment, we will be able to know what are the various resources which are available, which will be helpful to the business. And in this way, we will be able to tap the best resources for the business. It helps in coping with rapid changes. So when you are studying the business environment, you will be knowing what are the changes in the environment. So when you study the changes, you will be able to adjust yourself or adapt yourself to the changing environment. Then it helps in assisting in planning and policy formulation. So with the help of business environment, we will be able to know what will be the future plan of the business. So we collect data relating to the environment, and based on the data, we will plan for the business and also the policy formulation for the business, and it helps in improving the performance. So when you have a proper study of the business environment, it will help in improving the performance of the business. So in this way, we can say that it is very, very important to have a study of the business environment. So if you can see here, there is the chess played here and the checkmate, whatever is there. So you will know what is the next move to do in the business. Then here you can see this is a pictorial representation of the business environment. So the various dimensions of business environment is shown here. So we have the economic environment here. This is the social environment, technological environment, political environment, and the legal environment. So all this together, we call it as the business environment. So in all, we have 5 dimensions of business environment. Now, let us see the various dimensions of business environment, what each of them tells for us. So, first one is the economic environment. Now, in the economic environment, we have the interest rates, inflation rates, changes in disposable income of the people, stock market indices, and the value of rupee are some of those which affect the management practices in a business enterprise. So, interest rate, if there is a change in the interest rate, then that will affect the business. Then inflation rate means what is the rate of inflation which is there in the country. So that also will affect. Then changes in disposable income of the people. So what is this disposable income? So the total income of the person minus the whatever the essential goods, whatever he needs. So out of that, whatever is left over after fulfilling his basic needs, so whatever is left over, that we call it as the disposable income. So all this will affect the economic environment. The stock market indices. So every day there will be a change in the stock market index. So that will be affecting the business. And the value of the rupee are the some of the management practices which affect the business environment. Short and long-term interest rates significantly affect the demand for product and services. So we all know that most of the business transactions are credit transactions. So if the credit is easily available, then there will be a demand for goods. People will buy in installments. And if there is even a slight change in the interest rate, then people will not buy the goods because the interest will be a heavy burden for the people. So nowadays the banks are giving more preference for housing loans and consumer durables. Why? Because it is a long-term loan and it will be there for the next 20 years. People will be keeping on paying the installment. So all this comprise the economic environment of the business. Then the next one, the high inflation rates generally results in constraints on business enterprises as they increase the various costs of business, such as the purchase of raw materials or machinery and payment of wages and salaries to the employees. Now, if there is a very high inflationary rate going on in the nation, then what happens is that the cost of all the raw materials also will go up, as a result of which the cost of product also will go up, and then we will also have to pay more wages and salary to the employees. So all these will be the effect of high rate of inflation. Then next one is coming to the social environment. Social environment represents the family, friends, etc. So all this come under the social environment. The social environment includes the social forces like customs and traditions, values, social trends, society's expectations from business, etc. So in the social environment, we have the social customs and trends, whatever is available. We often see most of the offers and discounts which will be coming up only during the festive season. Why? Because there is a custom, there is a tradition where people buy something new for the occasion of the festival. So that is why in order to attract such people, most of the business houses, they will be offering lot of prices will be announced only during the festive season. Traditions define the social practices that have lasted for decades or even centuries. So tradition means, so it is the social practice which has been there in existence for a very long period. For example, the celebration of Deepavali, Eid, Christmas and Guru Parv, all these are traditions which are practiced in India. Then the values refer to the concept that a society holds in high esteem. So values means the values which are in high esteem, all those practices, social practices which are accepted by the society, that we call it as values. In India, individual freedom, social justice, equality of opportunity, national integration are examples of major values cherished by all of us. So we have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion. So all these freedom is granted by the Constitution, and we have social justice. So whoever is the wrongdoer, he has to be punished. Then equality of opportunity. So all Indians are equal, so we have equal opportunity, and national integration. So these are some of the values which will be cherished by all of us. Social trends present various opportunities and threats to business enterprises. So these social trends, so they give more opportunities to the business people. So whenever there is a festival, you announce the discounts or you announce prizes. So you announce contests. So in this way, you can cash in on the festive season. The health and fitness trend has become popular among large number of urban dwellers. So nowadays, we can see that there is lot of health consciousness among the people, and this health consciousness has given rise to a lot of energy drinks. So most of the business people, they are encashing on it. So they are producing lot of health drinks. So in order to attract these health conscious people. Then next dimension of the business environment is the technological environment. It includes forces relating to scientific improvements and innovations which provide new ways of producing goods and services, new methods and techniques of operating a business. So technological environment refers to the latest innovations in the products, whatever is available. So with the help of the latest innovation, you will be able to attract more and more people to buy the latest products in the market. Recent technological advances in computers and electronics have modified the ways in which companies advertise the products. So the latest products which are available, they are attracting the customers all over the world. Then continuing innovations in different scientific and engineering fields such as lasers, robotics, biotechnology, food preservatives, medicine, telecommunication, synthetic fuels have provided numerous opportunities and threats for many different enterprises. So because of the latest business opportunities, some of the businesses have prospered where others have fallen behind in the race. So it depends on what kind of an opportunity is giving to the business or whether it is giving a threat to the business. The shifts in demand from vacuum tubes to transistors, from steam locomotives to diesel and electric engines, from fountain pen to ball pen, from propeller to jet, and from typewriters to computer-based word processors. So all these are innovations in business. So before we had the transistors, now we have the mobile. So we had to have a separate phone. But everything, the mobile does the job of so many things, and that is why we see that the technology has given business some opportunities and threats to some other businesses also. Then the next one is the political environment. So it includes political conditions such as general stability and peace in the country and specific attitudes that elected government representatives hold towards the business. So the political environment means it is the general stability and peace in the country. So whenever there is stability and peace in the country, so if there is a very strong government which can ensure that there is peace and stability in the nation, then we can expect to have good business. But if there is political unrest and there are always strikes and there are always curfews and lockdowns, so all this will affect the business people, and also the attitude of the political party which is in power, it will have an effect on the business environment. The political stability builds confidence among business people to invest in long-term projects for the growth of the economy. So if there is a political stability in the nation, so it will help the business people to, they will invest in long-term projects which will benefit the economy. Then political instability can shake that confidence. So if there is any political instability, then business people will lose confidence in the government, and as a result of which they will not make a huge investments. So attitudes of government officials towards business may have either a positive or negative impact upon the business. So also the people in power, so what is their attitude towards business? So they will have an impact on the business. Then next important dimension of the business environment is the legal environment. It includes various legislations passed by the government, administrative orders issued by government authorities, court judgments, as well as decisions rendered by various commissions, agencies at every level of the government. So all the rules and regulations and all the court verdicts, etc., all these comprise of the legal environment. So whether it is at the center, state or the local level, all these are a part of the legal environment. Then non-compliance of laws can land a business enterprise into legal problems. So if there is no compliance, if the business community does not follow the rules and regulations laid down by the government, then it may lead to penalties which are being imposed. So all these are not acceptable to the business community. So advertisement including packets of cigarettes carry the statutory warning, cigarette smoking is injurious to health, is an example for government regulation to protect the consumer's interest. Now, we have to protect the consumer's interest. So as a result of it, the government has made a regulation that all cigarette packets should come with a statutory warning. So what is the statutory warning here? Cigarette smoking is injurious to health. Then let us discuss what is the economic environment in India. So it consists of various macro level factors related to the means of production and distribution of wealth which have an impact on the business and industry. So the economic environment consists of the various macro level factors. So what are the various macro level factors here? The stage of economic development of the country. So what is the stage in which the country is, whether it is an agro-based country or whether the country is fully industrialized. So that we have to see. Then the economic structure in the form of mixed economy, which recognizes the role of both public and private sectors. So if you can have a study of the economic environment in India, we have a mixed economy. So this mixed economy means we have both the private sector and the public sector which are functioning in India. Then economic policies of the government including industrial, monetary and fiscal policies. So the economic policies of India, that is, it includes the industrial policy. If the government favors industrial policy, then it will allot huge tracts of land for a construction of industries, establishment of industries, and it will give loans at a very cheaper rate. It will encourage more and more people to industrialize the nation. Then monetary and fiscal policies, all these are a part of the economic environment in India. Economic planning including the 5-year plans, annual budgets and so on. So we should have the economic planning. So the government of India adopted the 5-year plan. So they had a plan for 5 years, and every 5 years they had to just see what is the progress and then plan for the next 5 years. Economic indices like national income, distribution of income rate and growth of GNP, per capita income, disposable personal income, rate of savings and investment, value of exports and imports and so on. So all these are included in the economic environment of India. Then next, we also have the infrastructural facilities, factors such as the financial institutions like banks, modes of transportation, communication facilities and so on. So they all constitute a part of the economic environment in India. Business enterprises in India do realize the importance and impact of the economic environment in their working. So all these comprise the economic factors in India. Then the economic environment of business in India has been steadily changing, mainly due to the government policies. So, what was the economic environment of India during independence and what is the economic environment now? So, During independence, when India became independent in 1947, the Indian economy was mainly agricultural in nature and it was rural in nature. Most of the people were living in villages and agriculture. Almost 75% of the population was engaged in agriculture. So about 70% of the working population was employed in agriculture. About 85% of the population was living in the villages. So this was the scenario at the time of independence. Then production was carried out using irrational low productivity technology. So whatever agriculture they were growing, so it was all irrational and low productivity, and there were no scientific methods used. Communicable diseases were widespread, mortality rates were high, there were no good public health system. So there was no system of public health at all in those times. So as a result of which the Indian government had to set up government hospitals in almost all the areas of the nation. Then the main objectives of the India's development plan. So based on the scenario of India during the independence period, the government came up with certain development plans. They were initiate rapid economic growth to raise the standard of living, reduce unemployment and poverty. So they came up with plans to see that there will be rapid economic growth. So how can you ensure rapid economic growth? By just giving employment opportunities to the people. So you can solve the unemployment problem and also reduce poverty in the people. Then become self-reliant and set up a strong industrial base with emphasis on heavy and basic industries. So India decided to become a self-reliant nation. So it need not go and import anything from any other nation. So it wanted to become a self-reliant nation. So they gave more emphasis for the establishment of heavy and basic industries. Then reduce inequalities of income and wealth. So when you give more and more opportunities for employment, you will automatically reduce the differences in income and wealth among the people. Adopt socialist pattern of development based on equality and prevent exploitation of man by man. So with the help of a socialist pattern of economy or development, so we can see that there is no exploitation by anybody. Next, the industrial policy. So India adopted the India's industrial policy in order to industrialize the nation. So what are the broad features of the industrial policy adopted in 1991? The government reduced the number of industries under compulsory licensing to 6. So since India was a mixed economy, so if anybody had to start an industry, they had to take license from the government. So, but after this industrial policy came into existence, then the number of industries coming under the compulsory sector licensing, they reduced it to only 6. Only for 6 sectors, the licensing was compulsory. So for all other sectors, it became free. Many of the industries reserved for public sector under the earlier policy were de-reserved. The role of the public sector was limited to only 4 industries of strategic importance. So most of the industries were reserved for the public sector, so they were reduced and only 4 industries were reserved for the public sector and all others were given away to the private sector. Then disinvestment was carried out in case of many public sector and industrial enterprises. So disinvestment, that means 51% of the shares which were held by the government, they were sold to the private sector people. Policy towards foreign capital was liberalized. The share of foreign equity participation was increased and in many activities, 100% was permitted. So, foreign direct investment was introduced because of the industrial policy. Then, what is the actual industrial policy? This policy has sought to liberate industry from the shackles of the licensing system, that is liberalization. So the government became more liberal to the people. So they just said that licensing was not necessary to start any industry, drastically reduce the role of the public sector, that is privatization. So include more and more private players in all sectors of the economy and encourage foreign private participation in India's industrial development, that is globalization. So in other words, the government introduced liberalization, privatization and globalization along with the industrial policy in the year 1991. Then, what is this concept of liberalization? Abolishing licensing requirement in most of the industries except a short list. So, licensing, which was essential to start any industry, that was fully abolished only, and it was limited to only 6 sectors of the industry. Freedom in deciding the scale of the business activities, that is no restriction on expansion and contraction of business activity. So anybody could start any kind of a business. So there was no cap on the expansion of the business or contraction of the business. The removal of restrictions on the movement of goods and services. So there were no restrictions on the movement of goods and services. Then freedom in fixing the price of goods and services. So whoever were the private players, they could decide the prices of goods and services they were offering to the public. Then reduction in tax rates and lifting of unnecessary controls over the economy. So whatever the tax rate were there, so they tried to reduce it, and as a result of which they tried to just remove the controls in the economy, simplifying procedures for imports and exports. All the procedures for imports and exports were reduced, making it easier to attract foreign capital and technology to India. So, because there were no complex procedures for imports and exports, most of the foreign players came to India. Then, next one is privatization. Now, what is this concept of privatization? A new set of economic reforms aimed at giving greater role to the private sector in the nation building process and a reduced role to the public sector. So, privatization means your private people or the private players will be given a greater role in the economy and the public sector will take a back seat. So it was a reversal of the development strategy pursued so far by the Indian planners. So Indian planners gave more importance to the public sector, but now because of this privatization concept, most of the private players came to the Indian economy. Disinvestment means transfer in the public sector enterprises to the private sector. So whatever were the investments held by the government, they were all transferred to the public, and as a result of which, so it got converted into a private sector. So it results in dilution of stake of the government in the public enterprise. So when all the investment is taken away by the government and it is sold to the public, it will no longer remain a government enterprise. Then the next concept is globalization. It means integration of the various economies of the world, leading towards the emergence of a cohesive global economy. So globalization means the integration of the various economies. So you treat the entire world as a global economy. So these regulations were with respect to licensing of imports, tariff restrictions and quantitative restrictions. So there were a lot of restrictions relating to globalization. Some of them were licensing of imports and tariff restrictions and quantitative restrictions. Then it involves increased level of interaction and interdependence among the various nations of the global economy. Globalization means you have lot of interaction between the nations of the world. So there is lot of interaction, interrelatedness, interdependence between the nations of the world, that we call it as globalization. Physical, geographical gap or political boundaries no longer remain barrier for business enterprise to serve a customer in a distant geographical market. So the business has no boundaries. So the entire globe has become the market for each and every business. So why it is possible? Only because of this concept of globalization. Then the next concept is demonetization. The government of India made an announcement on November 8th with profound implication for the Indian economy. So what was the announcement made by the government? Two large denomination notes, that is rupees 500 and 1000, were demonetized with immediate effect, ceasing to be legal tender except for a few specified purposes such as paying the utility bills. So the 500 rupees note and the 1000 rupees note, they were pulled out of circulation on November 8th, 2016, and the people could make use of these bills only to pay the utility bills only. Now, what are the features of demonetization? It is viewed as a tax administration measure. Cash holdings arising from declared income was readily deposited in banks and exchanged for new notes. So whatever notes we had, about the 500 and 1000, they were deposited to the banks and could be exchanged for the new notes. It is also interpreted as a shift on the part of the government, indicating that tax evasion will no longer be tolerated or accepted. So it is nothing but a tax administration measure. People who are holding those notes, so they had to just come out and get it converted into the latest notes. So as a result of which, tax evasion could be curtailed to a large extent. Then demonetization also led to administration channelizing savings into formal financial system. So whatever the savings the people had, so everything came out of the cupboard and it came into the main financial stream. Another feature is to create a less cash or cash light economy, that is channelizing more savings through formal financial system and improving the tax compliance. So now we are having this cashless society or cash light society. So when we have a cash light society, we can have more improved tax compliance from the business people. Next, what is the impact of demonetization? So first one is the monthly and the interest rate, money and the interest rate. The first one is decline in cash transactions. So because of the demonetization, there was a decline in cash transactions. Bank deposits increased. So it increased so many times and increased in the financial savings. Lot of financial savings also increased. Then private declined since some high demonetized notes were not returned and real estate prices fell. Now before the demonetization, people who are holding lot of cash, so they could not come out and declare their income, as a result of which the real estate prices, they fell to an all-time low. Then public sector wealth, there was no effect. Digitization, digital transaction among new users increased. So when at this time we had this RuPay, etc., and real estate prices declined. Tax collection, there was the rise in income tax collection because of increased disclosure. So the people who are holding all their money in the form of cash, they declared all their income, and as a result of which there was greater tax collection in the economy. So you can expect 1 mark, 4 mark and 8 marks question from this chapter. So if you can just go through this summary of this third chapter, you will be easily able to answer these questions. Hope you have all followed it. Thank you.